Very quick intro.
To
the Carmudgeon Show. Episode 81. I'm Jason Cammisa. And I'm Derek Tam Scott.
That is Derek Tam Scott.
And this episode is about insurance.
No, it's not. It's about
you getting rammed getting your beat rammed on the... What happened on New Year's Eve? You had a festive New Year's Eve. Okay, we're not going to do the reveal now. You're going to talk about this. What happened to your getting ramming on New Year's?
I'm going to talk about the dangers of taking vehicles out into traffic with dumb people.
We talk about that every week.
No, but this was exceptionally a dumb person.
It was an exceptionally dumb person.
I'll show you the video, but I can't show it to them.
Oh yes, I look forward
evidence.
to seeing it. It's still under seal.
Yes. All right. Now's the time where we do the
musics.
Yep. What?
This is like that monologue in Dr. Strangelove and How I Learned to Love the Bomb, where he's like, there's nuclear war unfolding and the president is talking to the Soviet premier and he's like, do you think you could turn the music down a little bit over there? And they're like avoiding nuclear war, but it's this phone. What is the conversation that they have is really funny though. No one knows what I'm talking about. I'm dating myself again. Aging.
Hey, I've been told to go fuck myself, but I've never told to go date myself. Nobody wants to date this.
What does he say in the Okay, fine. We have a topic for today.
Do we?
Which we have...
yeah.
Why don't you lead off? Tell us all about the things that happened.
I mean, the funniest way that I can phrase this is for New Year's Eve, I went into San Francisco and my ass got rammed.
Wow.
I mean, people have said that many times.
Many a time.
Actually, my beat ass got rammed.
Oh. Did it survive?
The ass or the beat? Yeah.
The ass of the beat.
So very annoyingly, I decided I was going to participate in a New Year's Day rally, which you told me about and then didn't show up because you're a twat.
I was busy.
You told me you were in bed, so that's now
I was in bed.
Straight into the TMI department. Moving forward, Derek has had relations apparently on New Year's morning. Thank you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The night before,
you're the one
my
who's
ass
telling
got
about your ass getting beat.
That was yeah.
Your beat.
No. My beat ass getting rammed.
Right.
It was a Dodge Ram. All right. So anyway, I decided I was going to stay in the city at a friend's house. It was raining, and it's been raining constantly here in the Bay Area, and I don't like to drive my old cars in the rain at all. And then I don't like to drive them in the dark. And
what about in the rain when it's dark?
Definitely not. It's just the increase, the increase in the chance of an accident is just too high. And so I had planned on taking the Scirocco on the rally because I just got new tires for it and I was all excited about that. And in the garage was the Beat and the Scirocco. And I had also just spent a whole day doing diagnostics on the Beat and finally found the cause of a misfire was just a bad plug. One bad plug.
One bad plug.
Must have been because I replaced the plugs and I checked everything else. I smoke tested the intake for leaks. I just kind of went through a whole bunch of tests and then figured out it was just everything.
But were the plugs sparking when you pulled them out?
They were fine. Everything was fine. Under very high load at low revs, I had a stumble. Ooh, the lighting changed. Paolo realized that the house lights were
more romantic.
No. Anyway, so anytime you get that camera wasn't running. Paolo's high. He said he was piloting the struggle bus. And I think he's actually doing...
The struggle bus is piloting him.
Yeah, he's asleep in the back of the... It's okay. It's our first record. We can tell people this, right? We can.
Nope.
It's the second episode of the year.
Yes.
That is definitely not the first time we've re-recorded this.
An episode this calendar year. Absolutely not. We're coming to you live from the Carmudgeon studio.
Anyway, so anytime you have a low RPM, high load miss, it tends to be ignition. And this was a pretty big miss. It was a, dun, 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 and it would go. And it was on that transition, which made me think maybe it was fueling. So I smoke tested the intake to make sure there's no vacuum leaks because that fuel injection runs on a MAP sensor, which is manifold absolute pressure. So a pressure leak would fuck everything up. Anyway, long story short, everything looked fine. I was able to jump the spark almost 1.5 inches.
From the coil or from the plugs?
From the coil. I have a spark tester that you can sort of increase the gap. And it was this beautiful, bright orange spark at over an inch. I'm like, okay, well, the coil's fine. And I just didn't like the way the plugs looked. And so I just thought, well, it's cheap. They're $6 for a set. They're in stock. I'll go grab a set. And ta-da, everything's fine. In stock.
So they must be shared with something.
Yeah, it was Honda Fit 1.5. So I got that car all put back together, and it was fun because this was the first time I'd really interacted with the car. Like I bought it in April. So, April 15th.
Holy hell.
Day. I know. Time flies. And I bought it. I didn't do a compression check on it. Like I looked under the coolant cap. I'm like, all right, no oil there. And the oil looked fine, and let's go. It's a Honda. But I did a compression check, and that was perfect. Thank God, because that scared me too. Anyway, so I finally figured out how to get to the engine, which is a pain in the ass on that car. I'd done it once before, but this time I took the roof off. And so you take all these panels out and you can actually really get to everything. So I played around, checked the air filter, just kind of went through. And so I put the car back together and I thought, you know what? Let me not risk the Scirocco. So the Scirocco has been hit from behind twice. Once by a Dodge Dart, which you have to say with a Detroit accent.
Which, the most recent one?
I'm sorry, no, not a Dodge Dart, Ford Probe. It was probed from behind.
Does anybody else play this game? Never mind.
I have been probed, darted, and rammed. But I also was Stelvioed from the front. Anyway, so many years ago, that car got hit and just tweaked the bumper. And it's just that it has a very weak rear end, very floppy rear
Nearly
end.
incontinent.
Nearly incontinent. And it you just don't want to get hit from behind in the car because it tweaks the frame of the car and blows out the rear windows and the car's total. And so I just like, I don't really want to risk the Scirocco in the rain, in the dark. So I called my buddy and I'm like, hey, can I have a garage spot for the beat overnight? And he said, yeah, no problem at all. So I said, okay. And I get in the car and it's raining. It's not pouring or anything. And I'm immediately in preservation mode. Like it's New Year's Eve. It's 5:30 p.m. It's not late enough that everyone's drunk, but I really wanted to get there to his place and drop the car off before it got dark. But I fell asleep on the couch and had a nap. And so I'm in the right lane and I'm just doing speed limit-ish, like flow of traffic, none of my normal sort of road ragey shenanigans. And I'm on the Golden Gate Bridge and I'm like, okay, I'm in the right lane on the bridge doing, 55 and it's a 45 zone. So that's not speeding. And I'm like, okay, there are 3 ways that I can get to Noe Valley, which is basically across the city. There's 19th, which is a main artery. It's 3 lanes in each direction. You can never make a left. So it's probably the least chance of an accident because it's traffic
as
all
close
moving.
as you can get to limited access inside of city limits.
The problem is if there is an incident, if somebody does pull out from one of those side streets, I'm doing 45 or 50 miles an hour. I'm dead. Okay, that's out. The other way is Divisadero, which is a 1 lane in each direction up and over Pacific Heights in this huge mountain, which 30% grades, whatever cars, no problem with that. But then once you kind of get up and over the grade, you're on a 2 lane in each direction.
The fact that you think about this stuff.
It's a 1,500 pound K car in a world of 5,000 pound Teslas, right? And pickup trucks. So this is what's going through my head as I'm driving across the bridge. I'm like, Diviz is great until you get to the bottom. And then it's fucking pandemonium, especially as you get closer to, what's that neighborhood where you used to live? I guess that's
Hayes Valley. That's
whatever the hell it is. Nopa, which there are restaurants everywhere.
There are people double parking. There's a lot of scooters and people.
Scooters,
Uber Eats and Uber.
Right.
Uber.
And so what I see all the time is somebody jumps in a Prius who's like an Uber Eats driver and just makes an illegal U-turn through a light in front of 5 oncoming cars and everyone gets like hit. Like I've seen so many like issues of fuckery like that. I'm like, I'm not driving this car in the dark through there.
I had an incident there once.
Same?
On my motorcycle.
I want to hear about that in a second. So then the third option was through the park. So it's through the Presidio, through the old Army base, along a eucalyptus-lined beautiful street. Oh my God,
Paolo's editing. Paolo's editing the last Carmudgeon episode right now.
With heavy metal? Did we? Aww. Paolo, we love you anyway. He's very upset. He's like, when you catch the dog shitting on the carpet, that's exactly what. Oh no, it's the dog laughing
because you've left the dog at home for too long, and the dog thinks it's its fault that it has to shit on the carpet.
Poop on the Oriental
for like 11 hours, and it thinks it's its fault.
This is Paolo right now. Look, he's bright red. He's the color of a beet. Paolo, you're excused. It's fine. And so I'm like, okay, the Masonic, the sort of Masonic way. I go through the Presidio, and then I wind up on Masonic, which is 2 lanes in each direction, low speed, and a lot of intersections. So I'm like, okay, but no restaurant, Uber Eats fuckery.
Yeah, just the university.
Yeah, but it's not the university.
San Francisco. University of San Francisco is right there.
I didn't know that.
Turk and Masonic.
Is that where the Trader Joe's is?
It's a little bit down from there.
Okay.
Nobody knows or cares.
Well, here's the thing: is there's one
you chose a path.
There's one intersection which is by the Trader Joe's,
yes,
where people
which
are
is
always,
an absolute clusterfuck.
Right. So I paid really close attention. So I go through that intersection, and there's a Dodge Ram on my ass. And the problem with a car like this, with a sort of wavy convertible rear window and a semi-broken like right-hand side mirror, it moves around a lot. Is I'm looking around and I'm like, is this person actually on my ass, or am I just being like extra cautious?
Protective,
right.
Yeah.
And so we get to a stoplight and I'm like, that fucking truck is 3 inches off the bumper of this car. Unless maybe the car is, a lot shorter than I think. And I'm just imagining. Light turns green. The person does not accelerate and doesn't stay on my ass, gets to a normal distance. Halfway down the next block, 3 inches from my bumper again. And I'm in motion. And I'm like, okay, so we go through like 2 or 3 lights and they go from like further away to like genuinely uncomfortably close. So we're in the left lane of 2 lanes. So I go in the right lane and it's a red Dodge Ram, just drives past. I'm like, okay. And the driver doesn't look at me. I'm like, okay. So it's not like I did anything wrong. She's just there. Traffic chess happens for another couple lanes. I wound up having to get into the left lane again just to get away from a person who's waiting to turn because it's a pedestrian, and I get annoyingly behind the Dodge Ram again.
Behind?
I'm sorry, in front of the Dodge Ram again. And now this time I'm like, no, this car is definitely on my ass. So I put my flashers on for a second, just like, hello, and no change. On my ass, light turns red, we stop, we go, she's far away again. I'm like, okay, this person's just not really paying attention to what she's doing. We get to Fell Oak, which is,
yes.
Oak is one way, Fell is the other way. I never remember which one's which. I get stuck at a red light. I'm making a left, so I'm in the left lane of, it's 3 lanes right over there. I'm in the left lane of 3. She's behind me, and I'm 2 cars back from the traffic light. It's Prius, me, and Ram. I'm jamming out, thinking nothing. I'm like, the thought that went through my head was, I'm being ridiculous about the Ram. This was like 3 blocks earlier. I'm being ridiculous about this. I was like, stop worrying about it. It's no big deal. Light turns green. I put it in first. Wham. And as I'm pulling my foot off the clutch, bam, I get knocked into next Tuesday. Like hard enough that I almost hit the Prius in front of me. So it was like, boom, what the fuck? And so now I jump out of the car, and instinct is take a picture, right? Immediately. My instinct from the last time I got hit when the old man ran was video, right? So I took a picture and then I put it on video, and I'm like, let me not be an asshole, right? Let me just not be that guy. And so I go to the window, and it's a young girl, and she's like, the window's up, and she's just giving me a dirty look. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, roll your window down, please. And she rolls the window down and says, what is your problem? And I was like, okay. So I look down and I just hit record, and I just hold the camera this. I'm like, excuse me? And she's like, what is your problem? I'm like, you just hit my car. That's my problem. She was like, I know, key point. I know, but you were going extremely slow. Okay. Of all the things I've ever been accused of doing at the wheel of a car, one of them has never been that I was going extremely slow. I'm like, I was stopped there. I was at a red light. I was stopped. And she's like, yeah, but then the light changed and like you moved really slowly. I'm like, because there were cars in front of me that also didn't move until we all started moving. Yeah. And you did it like a little bit slowly. And I'm like, okay, this bitch is fucking dumb or drunk or whatever the fuck it is. And I'm like, I just thought, get her license and get out of here. I'm not having an argument with her. I said, okay, let me see your license, please. And she goes, I don't have a license. And I'm like, you're on video. Would you like to say that again? She's like, I don't have a license. And I'm like, okay, then I'm calling 911, right? Because in California, you're required to exchange information at the scene of an accident. So unfortunately, when I hit 911 and send, it stops the video. So what happens is 911 answers, and I'm like, hi, I just got hit like from behind, and the person who hit me says she doesn't have a license. And she screams, I do have a license. I'm just not fucking showing it to you. And that was the first time I saw like anger from her. And I'm like, okay. And the lady on 911's like, I heard that. I'm like, And I'm like, she's like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm on. She's like, Masonic between Fell and Oak. And I was like, wow, they can really triangulate you, which is kind of cool. And I'm like, yep. She's like, okay, since she won't provide ID, are you hurt? No. Do you need an ambulance? No. The car drivable? I'm like, I think so. I don't know. She's like, all right, we're going to send a unit just because she won't show the license. As soon as they said that, she turns the wheel all the way to the left and peels out and takes off. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, she just took off. And I'm like, red Dodge Ram. And I'm like, right as she's driving away, I totally forgot I'd taken a picture of her license plate. I'm like, I can see her plate. I can see her plate. And I read it. And so that was that. It's temp tag. Mm-hmm. It says 2020 Dodge Ram on it. So I hope it matches. And she's like, okay, we'll put a warrant out we'll get her tonight. Don't worry about it. I'm like, okay. And she's like, can you do me a favor and go to the police station and just make a report? I'm like, yeah. She's like, if we have a report, we know what's going on. We can issue a warrant for her.
Central Station. You were right there.
I didn't go there. I was told to go to Mission. So I went to the Mission.
Festive.
It was the odor in there was festive. So of course I walk in with a duffel bag that has a laptop and like overnight stuff in it. And the cop is like, she looks like she's a 25-year-old, like, new recruitee. And she looks really nervous. And I'm like, it's just my laptop. I didn't want to leave it in the car because, it's going to get stolen. It doesn't fit in the trunk of my Beat. And I'm like, right off the bat, I'm like, judging from the smell in here, you deal with a lot of crazy people because it really stunk like urine. And she's like, mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I'll make you a deal. I might be crazy, but I'm not going to piss on your floor. And she started laughing and that was it. So anyway, they took a police report. The car was drivable. I learned that night when I pulled the bumper cover half off and so I could bend everything and put it back together that car doesn't really have a bumper beam. It's a frame. It's like a bumper cover and then frame. And so it's tweaked. It's bent. It's pushed in where the taillights mount. I had to bend the trunk lid a little bit to get it to close, and it sucks, but it'll be fixable. And she did. Not only
any resolution from the perpetrator?
No, nothing yet. I haven't heard anything yet, but I haven't also called the police department. The interesting thing is not only she was courteous, not only did she ram me in the ass, but she left her phone number because there's an embossed copy of the license plate's phone number from the dealership she had bought it from in the friggin' bumper.
Yeah.
The good thing is I don't think I'm gonna have to replace a single part. There's one.
But what about justice? I want justice to be administered. I want her to be dead.
I want the same thing. I have to go through this the right way, which is I did what I need to do. I'll wait until they.
That's deeply unforgivable behavior.
What am I supposed to do? Look her address up and go, smack her in the face? Here's the thing. Leaving the scene of an accident, which she did, and I have her on video admitting she hit me, which I really, really want to post on Instagram, but everyone is yelling at me and telling me not to, because it's just the most entitled move ever. But so I'm not going to post the video unless I get explicit instructions from the police to do so. Or if they say, well, we can't identify her, I'll be like, I'll do that. Watch this. But I'm, leaving the scene of an accident. I looked it up. It is a misdemeanor in California. It becomes a felony if someone gets hurt, but it's a misdemeanor. It's up to 90 days in jail, $1,000 in fines. I'm sure she's not going to go to jail, but I hope that they throw the book at her and I will press charges for her leaving. I'm happy to pay whatever it costs to a lawyer to send a very clear message to her. If you're drunk and you're driving like an asshole.
Was she drunk?
I think so. So here's the thing. The one thing I would say is I said this to the police too, which probably didn't hurt my case. It didn't help my case to them. When I spoke to her, she didn't seem drunk. The way she was driving, she was either drunk on drugs or so jamming out to her, like her favorite song. Like people do that and they're like up and back and whatever. And I thought maybe that's it. But the thing is, you
should have just said driving erratically.
I did.
They can connect the dots.
Yeah, no, I did say, she said, do you think she was intoxicated? I'm like, yeah. But the way she was driving, 100%. The way she acted towards me, no, she didn't seem drunk. Of course, I sent the cops have the video, right? So, she didn't seem drunk, but she also didn't seem like she was going to flee. She was just sitting there like quietly looking at me. So clearly she's not an emotive being. So let's see what they do. I mean, I want her to pay I hope they got her that night and she was drunk and they booked her on DUI and she loses her license and learns a very, very valuable lesson early in life because she was pretty young. Or worst case, she gets charged with leaving the scene of an accident.
You think they'll find her? Well,
they know the truck. The problem is there's no question who it is, right? They were like, do you think you could identify her? I'm like, here's the screen grab of what her face looks like. 100% I could identify her. But so they know who was driving. They know she hit me because her license plate is in my bumper. She admitted on camera that she hit me. And because I was going slowly, well, I stopped at a fucking light. And so I just want to slap her in the face because she's so entitled. There was no like, oh, I'm so sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Or, God, your car is so little, I didn't even see it. I was looking past you. There are a million understandable, if not reasonable, excuses you could give to smash into somebody at a red light. She gave none of them. She just said that I was going extremely slowly while stopped for a red light. I mean, she's just dumb. So anyway.
I would be so enraged. I know you are so enraged and you're trying really hard not to be enraged, but I would be absolutely furious. I would. Again,
I feel terrible saying this about the Beat. It couldn't have happened to a better car, right? I mean, if it had happened to the e-Golf, it probably wouldn't have done any damage. It would have been just, you dumb bitch, and you scratched my bumper and now you can pay $300 to buff it out, right? The Beat, unfortunately, took enough of a hit that it's got to go to a frame shop. And that's annoying. But I'm just so thankful it wasn't the Scirocco, because if that Ram probably would have missed the bumper, hit the taillights, it's over. Yeah. And that's the risk you take. And I try to explain this to like my 19-year-old nephew, like every time you take your baby out, your favorite car in the world.
Well, at least his has a salvage title now.
Because he took it out at 2:00 in the morning and hit a deer. Right? I mean, so you have to get, and he was in a windstorm and a piece of trim blew off and he was really upset about it. I'm like, it's part and parcel of why you have good insurance. And he's like, well, my insurance company's they're going to charge me this stupid fucking deductible. I'm like, wait. There's a lesson here that he hasn't learned yet, which is you decide your deductible and you decide what kind of insurance you have. And then you are subject to that decision.
Yes, you pay the consequence. It's a calculated risk. It's the same thing that insurance companies do, actuarial accounting, although some people are just like, I want to pay less, so I'm going to do this, and they don't think about the downstream.
And I have no deductibles on my cars.
Yeah, me too.
And it's not
except for the GTI.
I think maybe the e-Golf has a $500 deductible,
whatever it is.
$500
deductible on the GTI, but everything that's with Hagerty's is 0 deductible.
And I want it that way for one reason. I just don't want to like insult to injury. Now I get rear-ended, right? So what you know, but the audience doesn't know, is I was introduced to the loveliness of vertigo last month, which is a BPPV. If you guys have ever had it, it's just a crystal in your ear and the world starts spinning. It just finally, after like 7 weeks, started to get back to normal where I wasn't ever dizzy at all. What do you think fucking a shunt from behind did? Boom, loosen that crystal again.
Really?
So yeah, I'm like fucking nauseous, I'm motion sick, I'm dizzy, and this fucking sucks. So insult to injury would be, now I have to pay $1,000 or $500 towards the fix of this car. I don't want to deal with that. Yeah. She hit me, I'm going to bring it to a body shop and it's going to be taken care of.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the Hagerty experience, and hopefully you have it heavily insured, which is always the beauty, or sufficiently insured.
Right. Well, that's, so that's one of the things. I have never, in this chair here on the show, really done, I don't think we've really done a thing on insurance.
Yes, which is interesting, given that
you've been
Hagerty's an insurance company.
But the problem here is that anything I say can be used against me, and I keep hearing that. And no, anything the two of us say can be construed as an advertisement for Hagerty, right? Because there's a Hagerty logo right there. But the reality is I was a customer for 14 and a half years before I became an employee, and I was a evangelist for Hagerty. Is that the correct word?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I put on a lot of makeup and I cried a lot, and I said, thank Jesus. Tammy Faye Baker, come on.
Oh. No matches found.
For Tammy Faye Baker?
No matches found.
Oh my God, you are young. So Tammy Faye Baker was a televangelist, and her husband was somebody Baker. Edward, John, somebody like that. He was a Fred, Susan, whatever his fucking name was. Anyway, he was a televangelist, and her deal was she was always crying and her mascara was always running. And so she was just always like, I feel for you and whatever. And they all went to fucking jail because they're all scumbag.
Right, because it's just a mechanism to avoid paying taxes on something and take money from
to extort people. Money from people. So she's now no longer with us. But yeah, the reality of it is I'm
sure she's in heaven.
You think so?
No, of course not.
Yeah, people who steal other people's money should not go to heaven if such a
and not pay taxes.
Yeah, I'm fine with not paying taxes. No.
I'd rather not if there's a legal way to avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. But I also don't want to go to jail because I'm going to meet the girl who fucking hit the be.
She's not going to be in jail.
I hope she is. I hope she rots in jail. Anyway, the whole point. So the reason that I became a Hagerty evangelist was that I don't remember what the hell happened. Oh, well, first, the big thing that happened is in the year 2000, I got hit in the Scirocco. And it was, I was leaving a VW meet. It was 2 lanes of traffic, and the right lane was stopped to turn right into like a mall parking lot. I was in the left lane, maybe doing 25, not quickly at all. Because there was stopped traffic there and I was approaching a red light. And somebody had stopped short of a side driveway and waved this black Toyota Chevy Cavalier out. And I didn't see that. And I didn't know that until it happened. All I know is all of a sudden there's a Cavalier in front of me and I locked them up and boom, hit them right in the driver's side wheel, which is
front or rear?
Front, strongest part of the car. Did quite a bit of damage to Scirocco because I have Euro bumpers on it and caved the bumper. I'll post a picture. Caved the bumper in and tweaked the front of the car to the left, just because they were moving that way. And his insurance company, I mean, it was immediately their fault. There were witnesses and skid marks and whatever. And his insurance company, don't remember what it was like, okay, well, we're totaling your car and give you $2,000. And I was like, no, you're not. And no, you're not. And so what happened was probably a 3-week period where all I did was just cry and go to body shops and just try to figure out how the fuck I was going to get this car, afford to get the car fixed because I couldn't afford to do it. And at the same time, fight with his insurance company to prove that this car was worth more. I had an appraisal done for like 10 or 12 grand. But they didn't count that. They didn't want to deal with that. And I wound up showing up at the appraiser's house because I looked him up. And I showed up at like 7 p.m. at his house and I rang his doorbell. And I'm like, hi. And I had backed up my Mercedes 190. I had a 190 that I backed up right to his front door. And the trunk was filled with trophies and pictures and receipts and books and records and everything I have on this car. And he was like, can I help you? I'm like, hi, I'm Jason Cammisa. And he's like, oh, what are you doing here? And I'm like, we're going to have a real conversation about this Scirocco. And I'm going to start by handing you, that's a photo album from when the first year I had the car. And here's another photo, printed photo, like actual photo albums. Here's another one. And he's like, I get the point. I'm like, I don't think you do. And I just started handing him, I'm like, oh, the trophy box. This one weighs a lot. And he's like, I get your point. And I'm like, you'll get my point when you put the fucking car back on the road. And he's like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm like, there you go, have that. And he was like, all right. And I'm like, I will never back down until you put this car back on the road because you're insured, hit me. And I'm not walking away from this without my favorite toy. So figure a way out because my neck fucking hurts and all I have to do is one MRI. And that was true, no bullshit. One MRI, you're going to blow your fucking budget. So the difference between giving me $2,000 and fixing the car for 6 or 8 is the difference between $100,000 in medical bills that I'll happily make Blue Cross pay. And he was like, are you threatening insurance fraud? I'm like, I'm threatening a fucking claim, but you need to fix the fucking car. So I left there, like he wouldn't take any of the stuff. So I left there and I'm like, probably sent a message, but I didn't get anywhere. And the next day I get a phone call from, now all names are being held, from a friend of mine says, come and get your car. And it was at a local car dealership. And a friend worked there and, I'd become friendly with the staff. And I'm like, what? And he's like, come get your car. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll get a tow truck. And he's like, no, just come and get your car. And I show up and it's painted and fixed and done.
The next day?
It was this is 3 weeks later. So I had immediately the day after I ordered a new old stock hood that I found. I ordered all the parts and I had it shipped to the body shop within this dealership. What he did, the owner of the dealership, who was a total sweet man, like, guy in his 70s, looked and sounded and acted just like Leslie Nielsen, was he just told the body shop, go fix the car. And he called the guy and he said, hey, we're going to do the repairs and we're going to do it under whatever the limit was, whatever. And the insurance adjuster was like, yeah, no, I don't know that happened. He's like, no, we found a way to fix it inexpensively. Jason's going to pay for some parts. We're going to do some labor. And we're reducing our labor from $70 an hour to $17 an hour. So 17 an hour times whatever, blah, 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 blah is whatever. So we'll do the whole thing. And I think it was like $4,000. And the guy agreed to it. What they didn't agree to was that the $17 an hour thing was a bullshit lie, flat out, and they got the bill. It was $12,000. But I had the car back. And what they did was they were like, we're not going to be able to match the paint properly. It's 10-year-old metallic paint, so they stripped the car down and painted the whole thing, and they did the whole thing in 3 days. And that was in 2000. But I saw the car and I just started bawling, and I'm like, oh my god, and they're like, get it the fuck out of here now. Like the car needs to go away before any insurance adjuster shows up. It was a really wonderful gesture. I mean, he saw me crying in the showroom to my friend. I'm like, I just don't know I don't know a way out of this. I don't know how to get out of this. I was 24 years old, and it was just the most important thing in the world to me. And it still is in terms of, material possessions. And so that was my moment when I realized, like, this is not okay. I don't ever want to have to fight with an insurance company over this. And also I learned about agreed value policy. My dad had a stated value policy with State Farm on the Mercedes 6.9 that I sold him. And he had a stated value of $30,000. Car caught on fire and burnt to the ground while he was driving it. Thank God he didn't get hurt. And the insurance company offered him $12,000. And he was like, excuse me, I had a stated value of 30. And he wound up having to go to court. And this was the lesson that he learned, was that a stated value policy is, I state the value of my car is $30,000. And your insurance company says, okay, we'll gladly accept premiums based on that stated value. But they're not agreeing to this could have changed. This is Florida. This is 20 years ago, whatever. But at the time, you're paying premiums on that value, but they're not agreeing that your car is actually worth that. That functions as a ceiling. You're saying, I will never request more than $30,000 in value for this car, but you're paying full premium on that. So he took them to court, won. After legal fees, he only got, 17 or 18,000 bucks. He won
on what basis?
He won on the fact that the car's value was really $30,000 bucks. And so he was able to prove the car's worth $30,000, and they gave him $30,000 minus legal fees and minus he had to pay his lawyer. So he wound up better off, but he still got shafted. And that was when, between those two incidents, is when I found Hagerty. And I was like, hold on, this is an agreed value policy. And so, well, you talk. I haven't shut up this whole time. You can fucking explain this.
I mean, agreed value is effectively they will write a check up to that number, or if the car gets totaled, they will write a check for that number, and they will not put any number you want on it, but they'll put a number on it that is far in excess of the market value of the car, based on basically what it is involved in replacing the car. So this happened to a friend of ours who had a 300 SL that was, he put a lot of sweat equity into it, but this is what you say, you can't polish a turd. And I've been through this process recently with helping friends buy cars, which is like, look at this one's cheaper than that one. And then you're like, yeah, but that one is like, doesn't really need anything, where all the stuff that it needs is like, you could spend 3 days like wrenching on it and the car's all sorted. And then this other one, you're like, it costs half as much, but by the time that you get it to the point that this other car is at, you've done a full restoration. Mm-hmm. And so it's worth it to spend the extra money to buy a nicer car up front. And that is subsequently exactly what our friend did. This one was sort of rough, and he bought it for like $3,500 on Craigslist or something like that, and then proceeded to do like a full mechanical restoration and like retrim the seats himself. But the paint was still a little bit fried, and it was still like kind of a high mile car, but he had a Hagerty policy on it for $15,000. And by the time he put all that equity into, just doing all the mechanical, I mean, like he just, he's, bless his heart, very obsessive about stuff. Mm-hmm. And he like hates rattles and hates this and that, and is taking apart door panels because there's a rattle in there somewhere. I mean, he's just the car guy that a lot of us are at heart, which is you want to, make stuff really nice. And then he got rear-ended in it, and the car got totaled, and he did get a check from Hagerty for $15,000, no questions asked, because he had a policy on it for $15,000, and he was paying that premium on it. And then, he's like, what do I replace it with? And then we found it was a 300 SL manual, dogleg manual, one of the 170 or whatever it was that came to the US. So, I mean, that's the other side of that coin, which is that if you have proper insurance with a guaranteed value, then the outcome is,
I think it's important
better
to point out one thing. You can't just make up a value.
No. There has to be some tie to the market that supports that. And Bring a Trailer has made it a lot easier to come up with comps, because until quite recently, Scirocco's were like still $6,000 cars. And then,
if that.
Yeah. And so if you have it with like State Farm, for example, then they're going to try and sort of harass you. This happened with my dad, and his M Coupe got totaled. And the car was, Dynon did this thing where they, you could buy a Dynon supercharger, and then if you like really went crazy, you could get it intercooled and run higher boost and blah, blah, blah. And they were supposed to make 50 of them, but they couldn't find 50 people to buy that kit for a 400 horsepower car with a shitload of torque that was boosted, supercharged. And so they made 2 coupes like this, and then they made 8 roadsters. And they tried to give my dad, the car had like 40 or 50,000 miles on it. And they tried to give my dad like, I don't know, $25,000 or something for the car when it got totaled. And he was like, hold on a second. And he gave them all the Dynon receipts. And the car probably had like $50,000 of Dynon receipts. And then they were like, okay, here's 38 or something like that. And so it helped with State Farm somewhat, for sure. But like that was ultimately as far as you could go. And if
my question is always, when do you want to have this negotiation? At the beginning or when it's too late?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the car's already totaled. In the case of, my Scirocco, I had no leverage. The car's damaged. Yeah. I'm dealing with somebody else's insurance company, not my own.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what would happen if you had a Hagerty guaranteed policy on it? Would you have invoked that and then they would have had to subrogate? Yeah. Subrogate is when your insurance company goes after the other insurance company.
So, for example, that's what's happening now with the Beat claim is I called Hagerty. I don't even know if she has insurance or who it's with, but
who she is.
I called the line. I am not marked as any. I talked to 3 different people in the claims process so far on the Beat, and none of them seem to know that I'm an employee of this company, which is kind of probably for the better. So I call in the line. I'm like, hey, I have an accident. I give them the information.
Here's a police report.
Right. I think the number for it. And the adjuster calls me back and it's like, okay, well, here's the thing. You have insured for X. I don't think we're going to be close. There's an app now that you can take pictures. You can either have an appraiser come out or just take pictures. I took pictures. And she called me back and she was like, okay, so I don't think we're going to be close to totaling the car. If it gets there, we'll talk to you about this. It's shop of choice. We can help you find someone. We don't recommend anyone. Go have it fixed. You pay it and we'll reimburse you. Period. End of story.
That's been my experience with. I've had 2 Hagerty claims since switching to Hagerty. One was for a windshield, and they were like, send me a picture of the windshield and the receipts, and then they sent me a check.
Same.
And I like zero deductible for that reason. Mm-hmm. So I got OE glass, and it was a Mercedes, so it had the little sticker at the bottom of the windshield that says Mercedes-Benz product.
That's why they wanted this picture, because I had a windshield on my E30, and when I went to go make a claim for it, they're like, well, we don't replace OE glass with OE glass unless you already had OE glass. And I'm like, it's a fucking Concours winning car. And they're like, yeah, just send us a picture of it. I'm like, oh, okay, click, done.
Yeah.
And, otherwise it would.
I like OE glass for no reason. I mean, I'm a sucker for that. But
I don't.
When it says like, TPG and it has the star on it or the Securate or whatever, Sigla, and then I'm just like, this is the way it should be.
Yeah.
Especially with the Mercedes-Benz sticker on the windshield. So like I sent them the receipts from eBay for me finding a Mercedes-Benz product sticker for the windshield, and they're like, yeah, no problem.
So the lesson for me was from Donald Osborne, do you know Donald?
I know of him. Okay. I don't know that we've met, but I know
we're friends for years. And I showed up at his warehouse years ago in the Scirocco, and he wanted to drive it. And I was like, no one drives the car. And he's like, I had one of these things when they were new, and oh my God, it was so fast. And I'm like, yeah, you're not wrecking my car. And so we made a deal. I'm like, you can drive it, but I want you to appraise my car. And he was like, okay, because that's what he does. And so he drove it around, and he's like, what do you have it insured for? And I think at the time I had it insured for 10. And he was like, okay, so that's market value. And I'm like, yeah, that's about right. And he's like, okay, that's not what you're insuring for. You're insuring against a loss, which means you're insuring for replacement cost. Mm-hmm. What would it actually cost to replace the car? And I'm like, oh, well, if I bought the car back and if I could use this and I could salvage that and I could do this and whatever, because of course I have a, engine built and all kinds of other shit. And he's like, stop it. What I mean is somebody takes your car. It's gone.
Stolen. Nothing left.
You sit on your fat ass on a couch and eat bonbons, and somebody you pay finds you a flash silver 28,000 mile Scirocco, just like it was when you bought it, but it's in Poland. And so you fly to Poland and you look at the car and you're like, this is a rust bucket. No thanks. And you fly home. And then somebody else finds you one in Germany, and you fly to Germany and you say, that's it. And that car gets shipped back to the United States. And then it goes to a shop that installs the transmission and the diff that you have in a 2-liter block, and the cams and the head and the fucking intake manifold and all of that other stuff, and presents you a car with no effort on your part, or you getting paid for your time, with a bow on it that's an exact replacement of your car. What does that cost? And I'm like, oh, that's outrageous. That's like 35 grand. And he's like, that's your replacement value. And I'm like, they're never going to agree to that. And he's like, try them. Right. And this was, so of course I called, and I don't remember what I came up with, but what I did was engaged in a conversation with my insurance company about what the replacement cost for this car would be. And eventually we came to a number that I thought, if the car disappears and I get a check for X, I will feel like I've been made whole. And then that was put to the test on the E30 when I hit a deer. So I was driving it around, exercising it, hit a deer at night. And the adjuster comes, and he was like, ooh, not good, because we have a fender bumper, grill, headlights, hood, other fender because the hood had tweaked sideways and got the fender. He's like, I want to replace the windshield because his brain's all over it, which means it's structurally compromised. One door, roof, and another door. He's like, we're painting 2/3 of this car. And I'm like, He's like, I don't like that. I'm like, me neither. But he wrote it and it was over total. And I had that car dramatically underinsured, way less than it was worth, even market value. And it was just, I forgot to adjust it. You know, like you just kind of, the world happens. And so in that case, they're like, okay, we're just going to write you a check for what your insured value is and we'll keep the car. Or we'll write you a check for that minus what the car is worth in its current condition. And I'm like, here's the problem. The car in its current condition is worth more than I have insured for. And the lady was like, oh, silly, stupid person on the phone. No, your car's worth $500. I'm like, my car's worth a shit ton of money. And so how they determined that was very fair. They posted pictures to Copart on a non-binding auction and got, I think it was 3 days. They allowed 3 days for bids to come in. And she was like, okay. So I think I had the car insured for 12 at the time. And the damage was like 12.7 or something was the estimate. And she's like, okay, so here's the problem. We have I'm not allowed to tell you the exact numbers, but we have a whole bunch of bids around the $500 mark, which is what I said the car is worth. And then we have a whole bunch of bids around the $12,000 mark, which is what you said the car's worth now. What's going on? I'm like, it's a wagon. And she's like, that's the weirdest thing. Like I had to mark it as a sedan because wagon's not listed as an option. And I'm like, right, ding, ding, ding. That was your first clue. So
because there were no wagons in the U.S.
Right. So if I were totaled the car, I could have bought it back for the average of all of those bids. And she's like, the problem there is 12,000 minus 7,000. You're getting you buy the car back for $7,000. You're getting $5,000. This doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, well, just give me $1 less than the total amount. So $1 less than the 85% of the car's value, and I'll walk. I'll take it and I'll fix it. So I got a check for, I don't remember what it was, $8,000, and I threw in another 10 or more, and I fixed everything. I'm like, once you're mixing paint, like at that point,
just do the whole car.
Fucking car. So we stripped it down. We cut out any semblance of rust, any semblance of corrosion, re-rust proofed it, painted the whole car, put it all back together, and now it's insured for 5 times some enormous amount of money. That's not only
far in excess of market value.
No.
Well, then you're underinsured.
No, it's market value plus a couple percent to find another one. That's all it is. I mean, do I need to say, well, what would it cost to have Bill Arnold build me a 2.7 stroker motor with a short cam? It doesn't matter. As long as I can get another E30, E30 Touring in blue in that condition, I think I have it appropriately insured. But that was the lesson for me, was like, they would have said, yeah, okay, you're well under total, just go have it fixed. And so now all the cars are,
overinsured.
No, they're properly insured.
By the layperson's
They're
estimation.
insured for their replacement cost, not their market value. And I pay huge amount of premium on top of what they would be to pay for State Farm or, any one other insurance company.
State Farm, actually, when I switched from State Farm to Hagerty, my bill went down by about 1/3.
Did you go from market value to market value, or did you go to market value to replacement cost?
No, I went from, I think it was like I used to get into all these arguments with State Farm, and that was one of the things that pushed me over, was that they didn't want to insure my stuff for what it was worth,
right?
Even for market value for old cars. They have classic policies with State Farm. Did Hagerty and State Farm integrate at some point, or were they supposed to?
I think it's in the process. I have listen, for the record, let me say one thing on this. I'm a Hagerty media employee and I have no access to or information about the insurance side of the business at all. So none of this is to be construed as insurance advice from Hagerty, whatever, blah, 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 blah. There's your fucking disclaimer, because I don't know anything. I'm just a customer, period.
So I used the State Farm collector car product, and I found it to be deficient. They make you jump through a lot of hoops and then tell you your car's isn't worth shit, and they won't insure it for what it's worth on the market, let alone in excess. And the premium was higher than when I switched to Hagerty. My premiums went down by 1/3.
That's
my total bill went down by 1/3.
I went, I don't remember. It's been so long since I switched, but my feeling, I had a claim on my Mark III. I hit a piece of metal on the highway in the rain. And they accused me of fabricating it. Like they accused of it being
State Farm?
State Farm.
I've had some really good experiences with State Farm for other stuff,
I've had
particularly homeowners.
So the thing that I liked about State Farm is that I had an agent. So when I was on the phone with claims and they literally accused me of insurance fraud, they were like, this is an old damage that happened months ago. And I'm like, I literally hit this piece of metal on the way back from the June Jitterbug, which is a Toronto-based Volkswagen show where I got a fucking trophy. So I have thousands of pictures of this car from the day of the accident. Don't accuse me of fraud. And they were like assholes about it. So the good thing about State Farm is I drove my ass to my insurance agent's office and I sat down and I'm like, Jeff, first name basis, fix this. And he did. So that was the nice thing. But I had so many arguments with them over fucking claims where they were like my adversary, not my like a good neighbor.
Yeah.
Fuck you. I don't have neighbors like this or I'd burn their houses down.
Despite the fact that they live next door and there's a risk your house could also burn down, it would be worth it.
It'd be worth it. No, I mean, well, but then State Farm covers it and then they would accuse you of arson, those bastards. No, I mean.
And they'd be right.
I've had my State Farm policy since June 7th, 1994. That is a fucking horrifying thought. But when I look, anytime that I've had them say anything to me, I'm like, look at how old this policy is. Look at how many claims I've had. Because I think it's, 2 claims totaling $1,000 since the year of the flood. Come on. Don't play this shit with me. I paid you for 25 years.
The point is that getting the cars over to be insured with someone who is oriented towards collector cars instead of let's send this over to AAA body shop and get it painted and then back on the road and the average consumer. I mean, you see this all the time. You're driving around and you look at the car and you see some car and you're just like, wow, it looks like it was. It's covered in sandpaper. The paint is shitty and the panels don't fit and the colors don't match. And you're just like, what a terrible repair. And most people, they're like, I don't know, it's not dented anymore. I'll take it home and I didn't have to pay for it. So I'm a happy camper. Whereas,
collector cars are different.
With enthusiasts, you repair their car and you show up and you look at it and you're like, I don't know.
I mean, look, this is the reason why Hagerty pays me to make the videos and it pays us to do the things we do, right? Because Hagerty wants to show the world that is an enthusiast company, and the company's tagline is never stop driving. So of course my fear when you call the number, the 800 number, like I just had a claim on New Year's Eve at 6:00, it was going to be like, oh, what were you doing out in your collector car in the rain, right? I had the speech prepared because I was definitely going on a rally the next morning and I didn't want to drive an extra hour. That wasn't questioned. It was just like, wow, that sucks. You had a loss. Let's fix it. Yeah. Thank you. That's why I pay you a huge sum of money every year. But that's why Hagerty pays us to do this. Not to talk about insurance, by the way. This is if I had to guess whether this helps me or hurts me at Hagerty, this is going to hurt. Somebody's going to get pissed off by something I said because it's going to construe insurance advice or whatever. Again, I don't work for Hagerty Insurance. I work for Hagerty Media. But the reason Hagerty Media exists is to make sure that the world knows that Hagerty is full of enthusiasts. These are the people who want you to go drive your car and want you to go live your life and want to stop the government from banning our old cars out of existence. And that's why I'm happy to put my work on Hagerty's YouTube channel and I'm happy to pay my premium every year.
I'm not happy, but I do it.
I wouldn't change it.
No. It's not worth changing away for sure. Absolutely not.
It's getting expensive. I mean, my cars all started out at $10,000 a piece times 2.
I don't want to hear about it.
I accept that. And then I'm going to say, I accept. Now you have a fucking Mura insured.
Yes, I know.
No, which is worth a house. And most houses don't do 70 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, I get it. It's worth it.
It is worth it. And I will say that for the stuff, for the majority of stuff I have, which is just these sort of random shit boxes that aren't worth anything, I'm shocked by how little the premium is for it. Just added a 1994 E320 insured for $10,000 and it's $90 a year for guaranteed value, zero deductible, $10,000.
Is it because it bumped you to a next level of discount or something?
What level to go beyond the Miura? I promise you
okay.
the E320 is not going to change them.
Well, no, I get a discount. I remember seeing
It's like
it
when you hit
I'm
7 cars, you get a discount, and when you hit some threshold of value of the total policy, I forget what it is, but it's.
I'm guessing you're there with a Miura.
Yeah, the Miura does it by itself. But anyway, yeah. So for the less expensive stuff, especially like that, I mean, it's based on claims history. I've noticed that like you'll have 2 cars that are both insured for $25,000, and the premiums are dramatically different based on whether fuckboys drive that car or not, as far as I can tell.
Oh yeah.
So the E320, no one claims on E320s because they're all driven by old, nearly dead people who are driving at speeds commensurate.
I'm sorry.
Commensurate with their impending mortality.
Oh my God.
Whereas, if it's a GTI or some kind of enthusiast car that people are driving around on rallies and rolling in bushes or whatever,
right.
then the premium will be higher. So I've
It's
noticed that the
huge
value is not so impactful as much as the fact that I have a bunch of old man cars, like old Mercedes.
The GT4, the 308 GT4 actually saved me $80 a year because it bumped me up a level for a discount. Because
and the number for the insurance is probably not that high compared to other, like the E30 is probably more expensive to insure.
I was just going to say that next is the E30 and the Lotus together comprise probably 30% of the value of my policy.
They're performance cars.
But 75% of my premium.
Yeah.
The Lotus is more expensive than I think probably 6 of the other 7 cars on that policy.
That's because every time you hit a Lotus, the clamshell cracks and it's $17,000.
If you can get a clamshell, right?
Yeah.
And the E30s are expensive. Why? Because everyone drives E30s.
And everybody drifts them into things.
Right. But the 2316, which is valued similarly to my wagon, is a quarter of the premium.
Yeah. Because it's a Mercedes and nobody's out there fucking around a Mercedes.
Ferrari's cheap. Cabbies,
because they don't get much exposure and they're all driven by old rich guys who are like, oh, no, it's raining. I can't drive the car for 3 days after it rains because there might be a branch or a puddle.
Ungalvanized steel, of course. It's perfectly reasonable. That's why I drive the Lotus in the rain. It's fiberglass and aluminum and nothing steel.
Okay.
It's an interesting thing. But either way, I'm very
proper
happy.
Insurance. I mean, I know this sort of sounded like an ad, but it does make a meaningful difference for quality of life, especially when it comes time to make claims. I mean, through State Farm making claims, they do honor their claims, right? Once you get past the point of arguing with what the car is worth, or if it's a commodity car like the GTI, you have to have one car insured with regular insurance, and that GTI is that car for me. Mm-hmm. And so even if anything happened with the GTI, I would be confident that they would, they would honor whatever its market value is. Like I had a motorcycle once that got stolen and it was insured with State Farm, and the bike had a bunch of modifications on it. And I had fortunately printed out the ad from when I bought it, and it listed all the modifications on it. And when the bike got stolen, they were like the market value is $8,000 for this motorcycle. And I said, well, it had all this stuff on it. Does it matter? And they were like, well, you didn't have that listed, but let's see what we can do. That was what State Farm said. And then they went back and they're like, well, so the wheels were $4,000 because they're forged Marcazzini wheels. And so, that puts you at 12, but the wheels, we depreciated them. So they're $2,700. So, right off the bat, they gave me $2,700 extra dollars for the wheels that were on the bike, even though I didn't tell them that it had it. And I just showed them the ad from when I bought it. And so State Farm will do stuff like that, which is the opposite of shiesty, Mercury Insurance, for example, to throw one under the bus that I had experience with when I got rear-ended in my Cayenne. And the person hit the person behind me so hard at the bottom of an off-ramp that they pushed the person behind me into the Cayenne. And they were insured with, the guy, I don't know if he ever touched the brakes. I mean, the woman behind me had like PTSD. She was like in shock and then started crying and stuff. She was in a Honda Fit and he was in a Lexus RX. And the Cayenne still from getting the tertiary hit was like a $13,000 or $14,000 repair.
Whoa.
From the Fit getting pushed into it. So, it's easy to get to $14,000 on a Cayenne. It was like a bumper cover and an exhaust system.
But still.
Compared to like if you were dealing with some shiesty thing where you're just shopping on the basis of premiums, then you get a different experience than State Farm. And then like the next tier up, depending on what the car is and how specialized it is, for me is just like, no questions asked. We agreed to this number.
I don't want to fight about it. I'd rather fight about it beforehand. Not fight about it, but I'd rather engage in a discussion. Right. When it's too late and then you're fighting about value. I mean, we had that with my mom's. I bought my mom an E46 and it got stolen. And
the silver one.
And it was.
That's what happened to that car.
Oh, God. I should show you the picture. Well, you guys are going to see the pictures. So I bought this car. It was really, really nice, but it had no maintenance ever done to it. So I did everything. I probably put 100 hours into this. I mean, we're talking every E46 problem known to man happened in that car in the first 3 weeks that she was driving it. I mean, it was the oil stand gasket. It was just everything. Diesel valves, all of it.
Cooling system and
a complete cooling system.
Rear trailing arm bushings.
Front lollipops. And I mean, literally everything, including like HVAC, like the feeder fan resistor, alternator, everything that goes on those cars went. And it was then perfect. It was like a 120,000 mile car. I think I bought it with 60 something. So it was probably 80,000 mile car. Either way, car was absolutely beautiful, mechanically perfect. It got stolen out of my sister's driveway, and then crashed horrendously. There was a guy in a full-size Chevy pickup truck with his cruise control set at 70. And these guys went through a red light and got hit right in the driver's left ankle. They were both unbelted. The two people, the guys who'd stolen the car. And they both lived, which is unbelievable. The guy, the passenger ran, so his blood all over the car, but he got out and ran and took off. The driver was pinned, went to the hospital, was in the hospital for 3 weeks, and then they were going to arrest him because there was all kinds of stuff. He had given them a fake address and checked out. And so he got away also. They wound up getting him later on.
Holy hell.
But this was one of those things where the insurance was in my... I think my sister had insurance on it at the time. My mom was in the process of moving from California to where my sister lives. And the insurance company was like, all right, we'll give you $1. Like, it was like one of those, like, the thing to remember that I had to continuously explain to my sister and then the insurance company is, I have the title for this car. You're not getting the title for this car until we agree on a number. So you can tell me all you want that you're going to give me $1,500 or whatever. It was some ridiculous number for this car. But I'm not releasing the title, and we're not going to settle this claim until you're fair with me. And I'm going to prove to you what this car is worth. And I did that with purchase receipts and all of the maintenance receipts, and then an estimate of how many hours that would have cost, because I did all the work, to have somebody else do it. And all in, like, that was $18,000 or something. And I'm like, the market value of this car is somewhere between 9 and 12. So you're going to give me 12. And they wanted to give me 2. And I think we wound up getting like 11.7 or something out of them. Like, but I built the argument. There's no anger. Very clearly, this is what the car I paid for it. This is what I put into it. This is what my time was worth. Now we're at $18,000. However, on the market, I could show that to a potential buyer and they would pay it for 12. That's what you're buying this car for. And people are like, my insurance company totaled my car. No. That's on you. You have to agree to that. At the end of the day, you own the title for the car. And so that was a fight that I just never want to have again with the old cars. And so as upset as I am about the Beat, and, I refused to let it ruin my New Year's. Like, I went to a restaurant, we had dinner, I made it up until like 12:05 and then went to bed. Rallied the next morning. I mean, I pulled the bumper cover apart and put it all back together, and it looks fine. It barely looks even damaged. And I did my rally, and I did 150 miles in that car, and it was wonderful, and it was a lot of fun. And now it'll go get fixed. I don't even have to think about.
Yeah, so I guess the moral of the story, as part of being a car enthusiast, is insure properly or drive a shitbox that you're willing to not ever see again if anything happens to it. Which,
but
is an unacceptable way to go motoring.
Well, or just accept the fact that every time you take the car out, you're going to put it in damage. It's not okay to leave it sitting in a museum.
You're more sentimental about cars than I am. For me, I'm always like, it's just a car.
Some of them, like there's no car is a very different.
Yeah, there's no car about which I am really genuinely sentimental.
Right. I'm not sentimental about the Beat. And as much as I love the Ferrari, it's kind of my number 2 car. I'm not sentimental about it either. If anything happened to it, I'd be really pissed because I'd have to go find another one that's just as good, and that'd be difficult. Yeah. But some of the other cars I'm not. I mean, but there are cars that you're really sentimental about. And I protect those more than I protect the other ones, which is why, thank God, I was in the Beat and not the Scirocco.
Calculated risk. Yep. Like insurance, actuarial stuff. Okay, this has been episode 81 of the Carmudgeon Show.
Oh, you're really going to give a number for this?
I just did.
Okay. Do not forget. So here's the other thing is I don't think there's any way for you guys to, if you go get a quote from Hagerty, to mark that you heard about this from Carmudgeon. There's no feedback mechanism. We do not get anything. But if there is a thing that says, where did you hear about us? Just put Carmudgeon in there.
Couldn't hurt.
And I'll ask the insurance guys. Again, I have no access to anything. I'll ask them if it helps, because I've been wanting to sort of talk about this for a long time, even though I don't want to be like an insurance salesman, but like I really feel strongly. All of my friends have Hagerty.
You conveyed information. Yeah. You didn't sell anything. You conveyed information.
I can't sell
that people can make their own decisions based on.
But all I'm saying is, take care of your insurance, or whatever it is, whether it's Hagerty, someone else. Take care of your insurance shit now before you get hit. So when you do get some fucking
And with all of the
Doesn't not
crazy
say.
weather and other natural disasters unfolding in various places in the United States, you probably should do that with get renter's insurance if you're renting, get
You had that
properly
experience.
covered homeowners coverage if you own your house. Just,
Now you sound like a friggin' ad.
I know,
It's
but
time to end this.
I've had so much experience that's been traumatic that I just am like, it makes a big difference.
Yep.
All right. Happy trails.
Happy
See
trails.
you next week. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, and we all need to make an insurance claim on that basis.
Yeah. Bye.